promises. On the edge of a quiet little town, there was an old wooden bridge stretching across a gentle river. It wasn't famous, nor was it remarkable, but for Emma, it was the place where her heart had always felt most alive. She grew up walking across it, watching the water reflect the stars, and listening to the whispers of the wind. One autumn evening, when the leaves had just begun to paint the world in shades of gold and amber, Emma found herself on the bridge again. She was 17, full of dreams, yet weighed down by the loneliness of small-town life. That night, she wasn't alone. A boy stood there, leaning against the railing, sketching the river in a worn-out notebook. His name was Daniel. He had just moved into town, quiet and mysterious, carrying with him an artist's soul. Emma, curious but shy, stood beside him, and for a long moment, they simply watched the river flow. "Do you come here often?" Daniel finally asked, his voice soft. "Every time I need to think," Emma replied. "And you?" He smiled faintly. "Every time I need to stop thinking." From that night on, the bridge became theirs. They met after school, in the rain, under the stars, sometimes saying nothing at all, other times sharing secrets they couldn't tell anyone else. Emma spoke of her dream to study literature in the city, to write stories that could outlive her. Daniel confessed his fear of being forgotten, and how his art was the only way he knew to leave a mark in the world. Seasons passed. The bridge witnessed their laughter, their stolen glances, and their first kiss beneath the falling snow. The town seemed smaller with each passing day, but their world together grew bigger. Then came the day Emma received her acceptance letter from a university miles away. Her dream had come true, yet her heart trembled at the thought of leaving Daniel. On their last evening together before her departure, they stood on the bridge in silence, the sunset painting the sky with sorrow and hope. "Promise me," Daniel whispered, "that you'll come back here. No matter how far you go." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. "And promise me you'll keep drawing. Because one day, I want to see the world through your eyes." They sealed their promises with a kiss, and though distance separated them, letters kept their hearts close. Emma wrote about her classes, her stories, the noise of the city. Daniel sent sketches of the bridge, the river, and the little things he saw in town. Years passed. Life was not always kind. There were moments of silence, of doubt, of wondering if love could endure the weight of time. Yet both kept returning to their promises. One summer, almost 7 years later, Emma returned. She stood on the bridge, now weathered with age, her heart racing. For a moment, she feared he wouldn't come. Then, from the other side of the bridge, she saw him, Daniel, taller now, his sketchbook still in hand, his eyes searching for her as if he had been waiting all along. Neither spoke as they walked toward each other, and when they finally met in the middle, he whispered the same words from years ago. "Do you come here often?" Emma laughed through her tears and answered, "Every time I need to think." And just like that, the bridge of silent promises became the bridge of forever. The bridge at dawn. The small coastal town of Evermere had always been known for its quiet mornings. Waves rolled gently onto the shore, fishermen prepared their boats, and the old wooden bridge that stretched across the river gleamed softly in the golden light of dawn. To most people, it was just a bridge, but to Evelyn Hart, it was a place where life seemed to pause, where memories lingered, and where hearts were often changed forever. Evelyn was a writer. She lived in a little house with a balcony overlooking the sea, her days filled with the scent of salt air and the sound of gulls crying above. She had come to Evermere to find inspiration for her next book, but what she found instead was a restlessness she couldn't explain. Every morning, she walked to the bridge with her notebook in hand, hoping the sunrise would write the words for her. One morning, she wasn't alone. A man stood there, leaning against the railing, sketching something in a weathered journal. His dark hair caught the wind, and his eyes, quiet, thoughtful, seemed fixed on the horizon. Evelyn hesitated, then approached slowly, curiosity guiding her steps. "What are you drawing?" she asked. He glanced at her, surprised, then turned his journal slightly so she could see. It was a pencil sketch of the bridge itself, captured with such detail that it almost breathed on the page. "That's beautiful," Evelyn whispered. The man smiled faintly. "Thank you. I try." They talked, first about art, then about books, and then about the town itself. His name was Daniel Blake, an architect from the city, who had come to Evermere to escape the noise of his old life. Like Evelyn, he had been searching for something, though he wasn't sure what. Days turned into weeks, and their meetings at the bridge became a quiet ritual. Evelyn would bring her notebook, Daniel his sketch pad, and together they would watch the sky shift from gray to pink to gold. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. But even in silence, there was a comfort, a connection that words could never quite capture. One evening, as rain began to fall, Daniel appeared at her doorstep, drenched but smiling. He held out his journal to her. Inside was a sketch, not of the bridge, not of the sea, but of her. Evelyn, sitting with her notebook open, her hair falling across her face, the morning light cradling her in warmth. "I think," Daniel said softly, "I've finally found what I was searching for." Evelyn's heart tightened, not in fear, but in recognition. She had been searching too. For inspiration. For meaning. For love. From that night on, the bridge was no longer just a place of passing mornings, it became their place. Where they shared stories, laughter, and the quiet kind of love that grows not from grand gestures, but from the steady rhythm of two hearts meeting at the right time. Years later, when the townspeople spoke of Evelyn and Daniel, they spoke of the bridge. They said that if you stood there at dawn, you could still feel the echo of their presence, the laughter carried in the wind, the warmth of their love written in the morning light. For some, it was only a story. For others, it was proof that sometimes, love finds you where you least expect it. At the edge of the sea. On a bridge at dawn. The bridge at dawn. The first time Ethan saw Claire, it was on the old stone bridge that crossed the river at the edge of town. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky with strokes of gold and lavender. She stood there quietly, holding a small sketchbook against her chest, her gaze lost in the horizon. Something about her presence felt timeless, as though she belonged not to the rushing world around them but to the still beauty of that very moment. Ethan, a young journalist who had just moved back to his hometown after years away, was on his usual morning jog. He wasn't planning to stop, but when he saw her, his feet slowed. He offered a shy smile, one that she returned with such warmth that it felt like dawn itself had smiled back. The next morning, she was there again. And the morning after that. For weeks, they would meet at the bridge, sometimes speaking, sometimes simply sharing the silence of sunrise. Slowly, words turned into laughter, laughter into stories, and stories into confessions. Claire was an artist, painting landscapes and moments most people overlooked. "The world is full of fleeting beauty," she told him once. "And I just try to capture a piece of it before it slips away." Ethan admired that about her. He had spent so much of his life chasing news, deadlines, and fleeting headlines that he'd forgotten how to pause and really see. One morning, as the mist curled above the river, Ethan brought 2 cups of coffee. Claire smiled at the gesture, her eyes soft. "You're starting to learn," she teased. "Learn what?" he asked. That sometimes, the smallest things matter the most. Time passed, and the bridge became theirs, a sanctuary where the rest of the world faded. But life, as it often does, carried storms with its sunshine. Claire received an offer from an art gallery in Paris, a chance to live the dream she had painted for herself since childhood. Ethan, though proud, felt the quiet ache of knowing she might leave. They stood on the bridge the evening before her flight, the river reflecting the pale light of the moon. "I don't want to lose this," Ethan admitted, his voice breaking. "You won't," Claire whispered, her hand brushing his. "What we have isn't tied to one place. It's bigger than that. If we're meant to find each other again, we will, no matter where the world takes us." The goodbye was tender, full of promises written not in words but in the silence between heartbeats. Years slipped by. Ethan pursued his writing, publishing stories that carried fragments of the world he had once ignored. Claire's paintings found their place in galleries, each one touched with a familiar light, a golden glow that reminded him of dawns on the bridge. Then, one quiet morning, long after he had stopped expecting it, Ethan returned to the old stone bridge. He wasn't sure why, perhaps nostalgia, perhaps hope. The river still whispered, the sun still painted the sky. And there she was, standing with a sketchbook pressed to her chest, just as she had years ago. She turned, and their eyes met. The years between them seemed to vanish like mist at sunrise. "I told you," she said softly, her voice trembling with both laughter and tears. "We'd find each other again." And as the first light of dawn touched the river, they stepped closer, not as two people who had been apart, but as two souls who had always been waiting for the moment to begin again.